They expected medical aid, got human battleships instead. Part 1: The Desperate Call. The sky above Prime burned orange and red. Smoke rose from the ancient cities that had stood for 3,000 years. Ambassador stood on the broken steps of the grand healing temple, watching her world die. She was tall and thin like all. Her skin was pale blue, and her large dark eyes reflected the fires that consumed her city. Around her, her people ran in panic. Children cried for their parents. The elderly fell in the streets, unable to escape the destruction falling from above. They had come without warning. Their warships filled the sky like a dark cloud. 14 massive dreadnoughts, each one larger than the biggest hospital station. Behind them came hundreds of smaller attack craft, raining fire on everything below. Watched a beam of light strike the medical academy where she had studied as a young girl. The building exploded. Thousands of years of healing knowledge turned to ash in seconds. Why, she whispered to no one, why are they doing this? They had no answer because they had no enemies. For 3,000 years, they had served every species in the galaxy as doctors and healers. Their floating hospitals orbited 100 different worlds. Their physicians had saved millions of lives. They treated everyone equally, never taking sides in any conflict. They believed their kindness made them safe. They believed no one would attack those who only wanted to help. They proved them wrong. A young aide named ran up to, his breathing heavy. "Ambassador, we must leave. The ground forces will be here within the hour." "Where can we go?" asked. "They control the space above us. They will hunt us wherever we run." "The underground shelters. Some of our people are already hiding there." Shook her head slowly. "Hiding will not save us. They want our world. They will dig us out eventually." She looked up at the smoke-filled sky. "We need help, real help." She walked back into the ruined temple, stepping over broken stones and shattered medical equipment. In the basement, a single communication station still worked. Its power flickered, but it was enough. Sat down and began typing a message. Her fingers trembled as she wrote. "This is Ambassador of the Confederacy. Our world is under attack by the Empire. We have no military forces. We have no weapons. Our people are dying by the millions. We request immediate assistance from any Galactic Union member. We need medical evacuation ships. We need transport vessels. We need help, please. Anyone, help us." She sent the message on all frequencies. Then she sat back and waited. Thousands of light years away, the message reached a small station floating in the darkness between stars. Listening Post 7 was not an important place. It was staffed by only 12 humans who spent their days monitoring deep space communications. Commander Park was drinking coffee when the distress signal arrived. He was a quiet man of 45 years, with gray starting to show in his black hair. He had served in the United Earth Fleet for 20 years but had never seen combat. Most humans hadn't. Earth was known as a peaceful world, home to doctors and traders and engineers. Read the message twice. Then he pulled up the tactical data that came with it. 14 dreadnoughts, 200 support craft, casualties already in the millions. His coffee suddenly tasted bitter. "Sir," his communications officer, a young woman named, looked at him with worried eyes. "What do we do?" "We forward this to Earth Command, immediately." "They are asking for medical ships, sir. Evacuation support, non-combat assistance." Stared at the data on his screen. He thought about what non-combat assistance would mean against 14 dreadnoughts, transport ships flying into a war zone, unarmed vessels trying to evacuate civilians while weapons fired all around them. It would be a slaughter. "Forward everything to Admiral," he said. "Mark it highest priority." On Earth, it was early morning in Seoul. Admiral was already at Fleet Headquarters, reviewing routine reports. She was 62 years old, with silver hair cut short and eyes that had seen too much in her long career. When the message from Listening Post 7 arrived, she read it in silence. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands tightened on the edge of her desk. She thought about her grandmother. The old woman had survived the Korean War as a child. She had told young stories about those terrible years, about bombs falling on cities, about families torn apart, about what happens when violent people attack those who cannot defend themselves. "They never hurt anyone," said quietly to herself. "They only ever helped." She pressed a button on her desk. "Get me Commander Park at Listening Post 7. His face appeared on her screen within seconds. "Admiral, I've read the report, Commander. They are requesting medical support." "Yes, Admiral. Non-combat assistance only." Was quiet for a long moment. She looked at a photograph on her desk. It showed her grandmother, very old, holding his hand at a peace memorial in Seoul. "They asked for doctors," said slowly. "They didn't ask for warships." "No, Admiral, they didn't." "Because they don't know we have warships," smiled, but there was no happiness in it. "No one knows, we made sure of that." For 40 years, humanity had hidden its true strength. The Galactic Union saw humans as peaceful helpers, doctors who volunteered on alien worlds, engineers who built things, traders who moved goods between stars. The Union classified Earth as a non-military species. They never looked closely at the shipyards of Mars. They never asked what those massive facilities actually built. They assumed, and humanity let them assume. "Prep the Third Fleet," Admiral said. Her voice was calm but hard as steel. "Full combat deployment." His eyes widened. "Admiral, they asked for medical ships." "I know what they asked for, Commander." Stood up and looked out her window at the Seoul skyline. Morning sunlight painted the buildings gold. It was peaceful, beautiful. She thought of Prime burning. "They asked for doctors," she continued. "And we will bring doctors, the best doctors Earth has." She turned back to the screen, and now her eyes were cold. "But we will also bring guns, because someone needs to keep those doctors alive while they work." She ended the call and began issuing orders. Within hours, the Third Fleet would launch. 47 warships that no one in the galaxy knew existed. They had called for help. Humanity would answer. They expected medical aid, got human battleships instead. Part 2, Arrival. 3 days passed on Prime. 3 days of fire and death and terror. Ambassador had moved to an underground shelter with thousands of other survivors. The air was thick and hot. Children cried in the darkness. The wounded lay on the floor, and there were not enough doctors to help them all. Above ground, they continued their attack. They had not yet landed ground forces. They seemed content to bomb the cities from orbit, destroying everything they had built over thousands of years. Checked the communication equipment every hour. She had received responses to her distress call. The Galactic Union sent messages of sympathy. Other species expressed their deep concern. They promised to discuss the matter in committee meetings. But no one came. "They're afraid," said bitterly. He sat beside, his arm wrapped in bloody bandages. "They are too powerful. No one wants to fight them." Said nothing. She had expected this. They had always known they were vulnerable. They had trusted in their reputation, in their history of service to all species. They had believed the galaxy would protect them if they were ever threatened. They had been wrong. Then, on the morning of the 4th day, something changed. Bora was a sensor officer aboard the Starlight Mercy, one of the few orbital stations still functioning. The station was badly damaged, but its sensors still worked. Bora was human, one of many Earth citizens who served on medical platforms. She was young, only 28 years old, with tired eyes and hands that shook from too much stress and too little sleep. For 3 days, she had watched the fleet systematically destroy everything in orbit. She had seen hospital ships explode. She had heard the last transmissions of doctors begging for mercy. They showed no mercy. Now she stared at her sensor display, confused. "Dr. Shin," she called out, "come look at this." Shin walked over from where he had been treating a wounded patient. He was 40 years old, a surgeon from who had volunteered for service on stations 5 years ago. His white coat was stained with blood. "What is it?" he asked. Bora pointed at her screen. "Ships are coming out of hyperspace. From the Sol system, it must be the relief convoy." Looked at the display. His tired face showed hope for the first time in days. "How many ships?" 40, 47, I think." Bora's fingers moved across her controls. "But something is wrong." "Wrong how?" "The silhouettes, they don't match any transport ships in our database." She zoomed in on the approaching vessels. "These shapes, Dr. Shin, those aren't medical ships." Stared at the screen. His eyes widened slowly. "Those are warships," he whispered. The Third Fleet of the United Earth Navy dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. The flagship Indomitable led the way. It was a Titan-class battleship, 3 kilometers long, covered in weapons and armored plates. Behind it came 12 more battleships, then cruisers and destroyers and carriers. And behind those, almost invisible among the warships, 12 hospital ships painted white with red crosses on their hulls. Commander Lee stood on the bridge of the Indomitable. She was 39 years old, small but strong, with black hair pulled back tight. She had trained her whole career for this moment, but she had never expected it to actually come. "Status report," she said calmly. "All ships in formation," her tactical officer replied. "Weapons charged, shields at full power." "What about the—" "They've stopped firing on the planet. There. They seem confused, Commander." Allowed herself a small smile. "I imagine they are." The High Commander was indeed confused. His name was, and he had conquered a dozen worlds in his long career. He had never lost a battle. He had never faced an enemy he couldn't crush. Now he stared at his tactical display, trying to understand what he was seeing. "Those ships came from Sol," his sensor officer reported. "From the human." "Impossible," growled. "Humans have no military. They're doctors and merchants. Check your sensors again." "I've checked 3 times, High Commander. Those are definitely human ships, and those are definitely weapons on their hulls." Thought for a long moment. His intelligence reports clearly stated that humanity was a non-military species. The Galactic Union database confirmed it. Earth possessed only patrol boats and cargo transports. But the ships on his display told a different story. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he ordered. On the Indomitable, a communication light blinked. "They are hailing us," an officer reported. "Put them on," said. The main screen flickered and the face of appeared. He was massive with gray-green skin and sharp teeth. His eyes were small and cruel. "Human vessels," he said, "you have entered a military exclusion zone. Withdraw immediately. This matter does not concern you." Stepped forward. "This is Commander Lee of the United Earth Navy. We received a distress call from our friends, they asked for help." "They asked for medical ships, not whatever you are." "We brought medical ships, 12 of them fully staffed with doctors and nurses." His voice remained perfectly calm. "We also brought other ships, in case there were complications." His eyes narrowed. "You dare threaten the Empire?" "I'm not threatening anyone. I'm simply explaining our position." Clasped her hands behind her back. "They asked for medical assistance. We are here to provide it. Our doctors will need to work in peace. If your fleet remains in this system, our doctors will not have peace." "So you expect us to leave, because a few human ships have arrived?" "I expect nothing. I'm simply informing you that you have 1 hour to withdraw from this system. If you do not withdraw, we will remove you." Laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Remove us? You have 47 ships, I have 200. Your species has never fought a war in space. You are doctors and traders playing at soldiers." smiled. It was a cold smile that did not reach her eyes. "You're right," she said. "We are doctors. We understand bodies very well. We know exactly how to break them. We know exactly where to cut. We know exactly how much pain a living creature can feel before it dies." Her smile faded. "You have 59 minutes." She cut the transmission. In the underground shelter on Prime, listened to the broadcast that her communication equipment had intercepted. Tears ran down her blue cheeks. "They came," she whispered. "The humans came." Stood beside her, his mouth open in shock. "Those aren't medical ships. Those are battleships. How do humans have battleships?" Shook her head. She didn't understand it either, but for the first time in 4 days she felt something she had forgotten. Hoping. They expected medical aid, got human battleships instead. Part 3: The Battle of Prime. The hour passed slowly. On both sides crews waited at their stations. Weapons were charged, shields were raised, everyone knew what was coming. High Commander did not withdraw. He could not. If he ran from a smaller force of humans, his career would be over. His honor would be destroyed. Other commanders would laugh at him for the rest of his life. Besides, his intelligence still insisted that humans could not fight. These ships were probably just for show. Big weapons that had never been tested in real combat. Humans were soft, peaceful. They would break at the first sign of real violence. Was very wrong. On the Indomitable, Commander Lee watched the countdown timer reach 0. She felt calm. Her heart beat slowly and steadily. This was what she had trained for, what all of them had trained for. "Time's up," she said quietly. "All ships battle stations, weapons free." Admiral commanded the fleet from the Combat Information Center, a reinforced room in the heart of the Indomitable. He was 60 years old, a veteran of decades of preparation for a war everyone hoped would never come. Now it had come, and he was ready. "Carrier Sunrise, launch all fighters," he ordered. "Destroyer Groups Alpha and Beta, move to flanking positions. Battleship Line, advance on my signal." The human fleet moved like a single living creature. Every ship knew its role. Every crew had practiced these maneuvers 1,000 times in simulations. Now they did it for real. They were not prepared. Their tactics were old, unchanged for centuries. They relied on heavy armor and overwhelming firepower. They formed rigid lines and blasted their enemies head-on. It had always worked before. It did not work against humans. Song was 26 years old, a fighter pilot from. He flew a Hawk-class interceptor, a small ship with powerful weapons and incredible speed. Right now, he was leading Ghost Squadron through the chaos of battle. "Ghost Squadron, form up on me," he called through his radio. "Target is the lead dreadnought. We're going for the engines." His Lieutenant Sierra pulled her fighter alongside his. "Copy that, Ghost Leader. Weapons hot." They dove toward the massive dreadnought. It was the size of a small city, covered in guns that fired in all directions. But the guns were designed to hit other large ships. They could not track the tiny, fast human fighters. And his squadron flew through the storm of weapons fire like rain, passing between raindrops. They reached the dreadnought's engine section and opened fire. Their weapons were small compared to the great ship, but they were precise. They hit the exact points where the engine connected to the main hull. They hit the power conduits. They hit the fuel lines. The dreadnought's engines exploded. The massive ship began to drift, unable to maneuver. "Ghost Squadron, break off," ordered. "Find the next target." Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out again and again. Human destroyers worked in pairs, using their speed to outmaneuver the slower vessels. They attacked from unexpected angles, hit vulnerable points, and disappeared before they could respond. They fought back hard. Their weapons were powerful. When they hit, they did terrible damage. The destroyer Valiant was caught by concentrated fire from 3 cruisers. Its shields failed. Its hull broke apart. 63 humans died in seconds. Commander watched the Valiant die on her tactical display. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands gripped the railing in front of her until her knuckles turned white. "All batteries target those 3 cruisers," she said. Her voice was steady. "Destroy them." The Indomitable's main guns fired. Beams of energy brighter than the sun crossed the darkness of space. The 3 cruisers that had killed the Valiant disappeared in a flash of light. "Targets destroyed," the weapons officer reported. Nodded. "Find more." The battle continued for 4 hours. 4 hours of fire and death and chaos. Human ships moving with precision and coordination that they could not match. Ships dying one after another, their crews unable to understand how they were losing. High Commander watched his fleet crumble around him. His flagship shook as human weapons hammered its shields. Half his dreadnoughts were already destroyed or disabled. His support fleet was scattering, running for the edge of the system. "This is impossible," he growled. "They're humans, they don't fight, they don't kill." His sensor officer looked up with fear in his eyes. "They're killing us, High Commander." On the Starlight Mercy, Bora and Dr. Shin watched the battle through the station's damaged sensors. They saw ships explode. They saw human ships moving with deadly grace. They saw the impossible happening before their eyes. "I don't understand," Bora whispered. "Where did these ships come from? How did humans build a fleet like this without anyone knowing?" Shook his head slowly. "I don't know, but I'm very glad they did." Finally made the only decision he could. He ordered a full retreat. What remained of his fleet fled into hyperspace, leaving 11 destroyed dreadnoughts behind. 3 more dreadnoughts, too damaged to escape, surrendered to human forces. The Battle of Prime was over. In the underground shelter, Ambassador heard the news through her communication equipment. They were gone. Prime was saved. She fell to her knees and wept. Around her, other survivors began to understand what had happened. They hugged each other. They cried. They whispered words of thanks for beings they had never expected to save them. Then new shapes appeared in the sky above the ruined cities. Not weapons this time. Human, painted white with red crosses, descending through the smoke and ash. Climbed out of the shelter and walked through the devastated streets. She reached an open plaza just as the first landed. Its doors opened. She expected soldiers, warriors in armor carrying weapons. Doctors stepped out instead. They wore white coats and carried medical bags. They spoke softly in Korean and English. They immediately began setting up field hospitals, moving with quick efficiency. One of them approached. She was a young woman with kind eyes and gentle hands. "Ambassador, I'm Dr. Han. We're here to help." Stared at her. Your people just fought a battle, destroyed a fleet, and now you're." "Now we're doing what we came to do," said with a small smile. "The fighting was necessary, but this is what matters. This is why we're really here." Behind her, hundreds of human doctors spread out through the ruins, helping the wounded, comforting the dying, beginning the long work of healing. Looked up at the sky. Human warships still orbited above, standing guard. Human hospital ships were moving into position. An entire military force had come to save her world. And now that same force was putting down their weapons and picking up medicine. "I don't understand you," whispered. Smile was sad but warm. "Sometimes we don't understand ourselves, but we couldn't just watch and do nothing. That's not who we are." They expected medical aid, got human battleships instead. Part 4: Aftermath. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Every species with access to communication networks learned what had happened at Prime. The peaceful humans, the helpful doctors, the friendly traders, had suddenly revealed a hidden military force. And that force had crushed one of the most feared fleets in known space. The Galactic Union called an emergency session. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in the Great Hall on Station Central, demanding answers. How had Earth built a war fleet in secret? Why had they hidden it? What were their true intentions? Ambassador Moon represented humanity at the session. She was 55 years old, with silver-streaked hair and a calm face that revealed nothing. She had served as Earth's voice in the Union for 15 years. She had always been polite and friendly and unthreatening. Now every eye in the hall looked at her with suspicion, some with fear. The Union chairman, a tall with 3 eyes and gray skin, spoke first. Ambassador Moon, the Union demands an explanation. Your species concealed military capabilities from this body. This is a serious violation of trust. Stood slowly. She looked around the great hall, meeting the eyes of representatives who had once considered humanity harmless. With respect, Chairman, we concealed nothing, she said. We built our fleet openly. Our shipyards on Mars have been visible to anyone who wished to look. We never claimed to be without military capability. We simply never advertised it. You deceived us, the representative shouted. He was smaller than, but his eyes burned with the same anger. Your species is classified as non-military. Our intelligence reports stated clearly that Earth had no warships. Your intelligence was wrong. His voice remained calm. We didn't create false reports. We didn't spread lies. We simply allowed other species to believe what they wanted to believe. She paused. Humans learned long ago that sometimes the best protection is being underestimated. The representative slammed his fist on his table. This is an act of aggression against the Empire. We demand that Earth surrender its fleet and face consequences for destroying our ships. For the first time smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Your fleet was in the process of murdering millions of innocent doctors, children, elderly patients. Your ships were bombing hospitals. Her voice grew harder. We stopped you. We will not apologize for that. We will not surrender anything. And if your empire chooses to seek revenge. She left the threat unfinished. She didn't need to finish it. The hall was silent. Then a new voice spoke, weak and tired but clear. May I address this body? Everyone turned. Ambassador of the stood near the entrance. She looked exhausted. Her blue skin was pale and she leaned on a walking staff, but her eyes were sharp. Ambassador, the chairman said, we are surprised to see you here. We understood your world was in crisis. It is, but I needed to come. Walked slowly to the center of the hall. Every step seemed to cost her effort. I needed to speak while memories are fresh, while the ashes of my cities are still warm. She turned to face the full assembly. When they attacked, I sent messages to everyone, every species in this union. I begged for help. I pleaded for rescue. Her voice trembled with emotion. You know what I received? Sympathy. Promises to discuss the matter in committees. Expressions of deep concern. She paused, letting the silence grow heavy. No one came. No one was willing to risk conflict with our 3,000 years of service to every species in this galaxy. All the lives our doctors saved meant nothing. We were going to die, and everyone was going to watch it happen. Turned to look at Moon. Except humans. Humans came. They came with warships we didn't know they had. They fought a battle they didn't need to fight. They lost their own people to save strangers. Tears began to fall down her blue cheeks. And when the fighting was over, they didn't conquer us. They didn't demand payment. They started healing our wounded. She faced the representative directly. You say Earth acted with aggression. You were burning our hospitals. You were murdering our children. The humans stopped you. Her weak voice grew stronger with anger. I don't care what weapons Earth possesses. I care that they used those weapons to save my people when no one else would. The representative opened his mouth to respond, but other voices rose in the hall. Species that had received help from doctors. Species that had watched the battle recordings with shock and new understanding. Species that were suddenly looking at humanity in a different way. The emergency session, ended without any action against Earth. Back on Prime, reconstruction had already begun. Human engineers worked alongside builders. Human soldiers stood guard while repair crews fixed damaged buildings. Human doctors still worked in the field hospitals, treating the endless stream of wounded. Commander Lee walked through a refugee camp with Dr. Han. Thousands have lived in temporary shelters here. Many had lost everything: their homes, their families, their sense of safety. Some of them are afraid of us now, observed quietly. I can see it in their eyes when we walk past. Before, humans were just helpful doctors. Now they know we can kill. Nodded. Fear is natural. We just showed them something they never expected. Is that a good thing? Thought about the question as they walked. She watched a group of children playing near a food distribution station. Human soldiers sat nearby, taking a break from guard duty. One of the soldiers was showing the children a game, making hand shadows that looked like animals. The children were laughing. Fear fades, said finally. What we did here, saving these people, that will last. In 10 years, those children will remember that humans came to help when no one else would. That matters more than fear. They stopped to watch a human construction crew helping workers rebuild a collapsed school. The humans worked hard, sweating in the hot sun, lifting heavy materials alongside their alien partners. We're strange creatures, said. We can destroy a fleet before breakfast and then spend the afternoon playing with children. Almost smiled. Maybe that's what makes us human. We have the capacity for violence, but we choose something else when we can. She looked up at the sky, where human ships still orbited. We didn't want this fight, but we weren't going to let innocent people die while we had the power to save them. That night in the refugee camp, an elder approached. He was very old, his blue skin wrinkled and thin. He walked with 2 canes but refused help from anyone. You are the commander, he said, the one who led the battle. Nodded. I am. The elder studied her for a long moment. My daughter was a doctor on the Healing Star Station. They destroyed it on the first day. She died trying to protect her patients. I'm sorry, said quietly. I was angry when I heard about the human fleet. I thought, why did they hide their strength? If they had come sooner, maybe my daughter would be alive. The elder's voice cracked. But then I thought, you came at all, when no one else would. You came. He reached out and took his hand in his thin fingers. Thank you, he said. Thank you for coming. Didn't know what to say. She just held the old man's hand while he wept for his daughter. They expected medical aid, got human battleships instead. Part 5. The New Understanding. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Prime. The galaxy had changed. The Empire, humiliated by their defeat, had withdrawn from 3 systems they once claimed. Other aggressive species watched Earth's fleet with new caution. Wars that might have started didn't. Attacks that might have happened were canceled. Peace was not perfect, but it was more common than before. Ambassador visited Earth for the first time. She traveled to Seoul, the city where Admiral had made the decision to send the Third Fleet. She wanted to understand these strange beings who had saved her people. Ambassador Moon met her at the arrival station. The 2 women walked through the busy streets of the city together, surrounded by crowds of humans going about their daily lives. Looked around with wonder. She saw children walking to school. She saw elderly people sitting in parks enjoying the autumn sunshine. She saw young couples holding hands and laughing together. It all seemed so normal, so peaceful. It's hard to believe, said. Looking at this place, at these people, they seem so gentle, so ordinary. Smiled. We are ordinary. Most of us live our entire lives without ever touching a weapon. We raise families, we work jobs, we worry about small things. But you also build battleships. Yes, we do that too. They walked in silence for a while, led to a small park in the center of the city. At its heart stood a memorial, simple stone pillars with names carved into them. Thousands of names. "What is this place?" asked. "A war memorial. These names are from a conflict that happened on this peninsula more than 100 years ago," touched one of the stones gently. "My grandmother survived that war. She was just a child. She saw things no child should see. Studied the names, so many of them. Your species has known much war. Too much. For most of our history we fought each other, nations against nations, religions against religions, ideas against ideas." His voice was sad. "We have done terrible things to each other, things that still haunt us." "Then how did you become what you are now, the doctors, the helpers?" "Turn to face, because we learned. Every war taught us something about ourselves, about what violence costs, about what happens when you destroy instead of build." She gestured at the city around them. "This peace, this civilization, we built it on top of our mistakes. We swore we would do better, be better. But you kept your weapons." "Yes, because we also learned that sometimes, no matter how much you want peace, violence comes to you, and when it does, you need to be able to fight." The expression grew serious. "We hope we never have to use our fleet again, but we won't disarm and leave ourselves helpless. We tried that before in our history. It didn't work." Thought about her own people. They had chosen a different path. They had abandoned all weapons, trusted completely in peace and service, and they had nearly been destroyed for it. "I still don't fully understand," she admitted. "Your people could conquer. You have the power. Why help us instead? Why not use your hidden strength to take what you want?" Considered the question carefully. They walked past the memorial, toward a small garden where children were playing. "Because power without purpose is just violence, and violence without meaning destroys the one who uses it as surely as the victims." She watched the children running and laughing. "We want our children to grow up in a good galaxy, a galaxy where the strong protect the weak, where doctors can heal without fear, where people like the can serve all species in peace. You fight so others don't have to. When we must, we would rather heal, build, create," smiled softly. "But we've learned you can't always choose. Sometimes the only way to protect peace is to be ready for war." Back on Earth, at Fleet Headquarters in Seoul, Admiral reviewed the latest intelligence reports. They were rebuilding their fleet. Quietly, secretly, but definitely rebuilding. Commander Park entered her office with a tablet containing new data. "They are constructing new shipyards in the outer systems," he reported. "At current rates, they could replace their losses within 3 years." Admiral nodded slowly. She was not surprised. They were proud and angry. They would not accept their defeat forever. "They'll try again eventually," she said. "Yes, Admiral, what do we do?" Stood and walked to her window. The Seoul skyline stretched before her, beautiful in the afternoon light. Millions of people living their lives, unaware of the threats that lurked in distant stars. She thought about her grandmother again. The old woman had died 5 years ago at the age of 92, but her stories remained. Stories about surviving when everything seemed lost. Stories about the importance of strength and the wisdom to use it correctly. "We do what we've always done," said quietly. "We prepare, we train, we build, we make ourselves ready for whatever comes. And if someone calls for help again." Turned back to face. Her eyes were calm but determined. "Then we answer, with whatever they need, doctors if they need healing, soldiers if they need protection, battleships if they need salvation." She sat back down at her desk. "That's who we are, Commander. That's what humanity has become." Across the galaxy, on 100 worlds, species that had once thought of humans as harmless helpers now looked at them with new eyes. Some with fear, some with respect, some with hope. On Rebuilt Prime, Ambassador returned from her visit to Earth. She gathered her people and spoke to them about what she had learned. "Humans are complicated," she told them. "They carry darkness in their history, violence in their past. They have done terrible things to each other and to others, but they have also learned from their mistakes. They have grown. They have become something new." She looked out over the crowd of who had gathered to hear her. Survivors, rebuilders, the future of her species. They are doctors, she said. They are diplomats. They are kind and generous and willing to help strangers. But they are also warriors. They are protectors. They are willing to fight and die for people they have never met. Thought about Commander, who had destroyed a fleet and then helped rebuild a school. She thought about Doctor, who had treated wounded patients until she collapsed from exhaustion. She thought about all the humans who had come to save her world. I asked them why, continued, why they fight for others, why they use their power to protect instead of conquer. She paused, remembering words. They told me that power without purpose is meaningless, that strength only matters when you use it to help others. In the crowd, children who had survived the attack looked up at her with wide eyes. They would grow up in a different galaxy than the one their parents had known. A galaxy where humanity was no longer underestimated. A galaxy where help could come from unexpected places. The humans taught us something important, said finally. Peace is precious, but peace cannot survive without protection. We chose to be healers and rejected all violence. It nearly cost us everything. Her voice grew stronger. Perhaps there is a middle path, a way to be kind and also be strong, to heal and also to protect. The stars shone above Prime. Human ships still patrolled the system, keeping watch. Human doctors still worked in the hospitals, training physicians. Human engineers still helped rebuild what they had destroyed. And somewhere in Earth's shipyards, new ships were being built, just in case. Because humans had learned a long time ago that hope was not a strategy, that peace required vigilance, that the innocent needed guardians. The galaxy had finally learned what humans really were. Doctors, diplomats, traders, teachers. And when the innocent were threatened, something else entirely. Something they would never forget.